So, out walking the neighborhood, and I'm sitting in the garden or our yard this morning, feeling the sun. It's close to the winter solstice, which is basically tomorrow, tomorrow. And I'm feeling the whole Christmas things. There's two ways of being in this world, really, because we are in a completely programmed world at this time. The Christmas hoopla brings it up, you know, all the worship of this false Annunaki god. Not Jesus. Jesus tried to come and undo that. He tried to come and undo it. At one point he calls it this old dragon that we've been fighting with. The dragon we've been fighting with for a long time. Why does he do that? Why does he do that? Because the deeper history on Earth is this Lyran beginning, the Syrians from Sirius. I always make fun of it. I wish the Syrians weren't so serious. This is a little bit shocking, I know, to everybody, but these Anunnaki that a bunch of people are, you know, finally exposing, which is really good, they really did come from another solar system. Sirius, basically. They're too serious. And they came into our solar system. Now you can look this up with a guy named Anthony Sanchez, the UFO Highway. Check that out. But I've always felt this. 25 years ago, the little gray, creepy guys, the little stereotypical aliens started showing up in my bedroom, basically, as I was reading a book about it. And I said, what's this about? And Source, God, Spirit showed me then. It's all turned out to be true. From 25 years ago, they basically showed me that these guys are a artificial life form, in a sense. Nothing's artificial. It's all good in the big picture. I understand that. Non-duality. But they are a piece of several humans, bunch of humans at this point that get involved with the Human Genome Project, cyborgism, transhumanism, this type of stuff. But they create these life forms that go down a different timeline. And there's a whole bunch of varied things within the grays as well. They're not just all the same. Are humans all the same? No. Are the gray race all the same? No. Of course not. So anyway, but the bigger history that's being shown, and this cult of control, if you will, on the planet, which stems from these ETs that basically fled their home planet for whatever reason. Either they got kicked out and they needed to find a new home. Mars used to have a civilization. I've always felt that. I've seen the lifetimes with how that happened, and they actually time traveled into Atlantis. I know this is far out for a lot of us, but Mars, we destroyed that civilization. The atmosphere was destroyed, and that was these beings, the Anunnaki. Some of us have been involved with this for a long, 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 long time. So the Abrahamic religions, started by Abraham, which is mostly still what churchism does, even though Jesus tried to come and shift it, they still do Abrahamic control, Old Testament crap, you know, fear-mongering, controlling of souls. Abraham, there's a part in the story where he's very, very upset that his sons see him without his cloaks. Now the ancient Anunnaki, if you look up the statues, some of them are actually with the reptilian heads. Now, I've met reptilians. This is some far out stuff here now. Reptilians are not all bad. Are humans all bad or good? They're not. Well, neither are the reptilians. There's, again, aspects of it. So when Jesus says this ancient dragon we've been fighting, he's talking about one aspect of these Anunnaki reptilians. Abraham, when he's complaining that his son saw him without the cloak, without the garment, it's because he was one of these Anunnaki, or actually the hybrid Anunnaki, the Elohim, that came down and bred with the humans. And so he was one of the ones that was left that actually had still reptilian skin, some scales on him, and some of those features. And so he was upset because his sons saw this is what it was. Now, I know it's far out stuff, but if you want to know the truth. So then that Abrahamic religion was basically created, which includes, of course, the Jews. His two sons became the Arabs and the Jews, Shem and Isaac, right? And what kind of God, what kind of God master, slaving masters would require you, this is the Abrahamic story, to take your little son, build a stone altar that you're going to slice his throat on, pour the blood into the fire, and burn your son, your firstborn son, alive as a sacrifice to the gods. This is the Abrahamic religion, the source of it. So I'm just pointing it out. All this hoopla, most of Christendom, most of Islam, and most of the Judaism, obviously, is still under the yoke of this Old Testament bullshit blood sacrifices. It's in the blood. They feed off the blood. Because the blood is the closest thing to carrying the life source, the essence, the prana, the chi, the ruach. It carries that within it. And so this is why they do the blood rituals. This is why they still are doing it. You know, this is the body of Christ, the blood of Christ. He's trying to get rid of that once and for all. Instead of slaughtering the lambs, which they still do en masse, the goats and the lambs, the Muslims still do it when they do their Hajj. Thousands upon thousands of innocent lambs and goats are slaughtered for God. So this is still the predominant blood sacrifice religion that's operating on the planet. This goes down then to sacrificing yourself in wars. Somehow that's heroic. It goes everywhere, to us killing 35 million cows a year just to feed on. It's still this blood sacrifice mainly that's occurring on the planet, and including us. Most humans obviously live, we die in horrible situations. So this is the dominant paradigm still, the mostly dominant paradigm, with lots of good-hearted. The vast majority of people are good-hearted people and just confused by it, making the best of it. So when a teacher comes, whether it's Jesus or John Lennon, which, by the way, they are aspects actually of the same soul, telling tales out of school. When a soul comes that feels more directly, usually artists do, because they're feeling the music, they're feeling the inspiration, they're feeling the muses, so they tend to feel directly life. And they will not go along with this blood sacrifice dominant paradigm. This blood sacrifice, basically, dominant paradigm. They will rebel against it. Now, whether that's Vincent van Gogh, whether that's Oscar Wilde, whether that's Leo Tolstoy, whether that's Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, John Lennon, Martin Luther King, the Kennedys, trying to rebel against that, trying to undo that and have it become a gentler nation, a gentler, loving paradigm instead of this control paradigm. They don't tend to fare so well, because once they hit the larger collective programming, there are certain things that get triggered, and you do this mass ritual sacrifice, basically. John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and you traumatize a whole nation or a whole planet. That's why we can all remember that moment where we were, if you're old enough. I'm not, but JFK, when he was shot. I remember when Robert Kennedy was shot. I was just a little boy in Sweden, and I can remember our teacher running across the lawn saying that he had been shot. So these are implanted collective traumatization points by these controllers. Now, David Icke calls them reptilians, and yeah, and I'm doing that a little bit too. But again, remember, just because they are reptilian doesn't mean they're all bad. Okay, there's really good, beautiful reptilian energy, which is what you are. Your reptilian brain forms first. The brain, as it's forming, the brain stem, the medulla oblongata, the basic life functions of breathing and heartbeat and so forth, is basically a reptilian parasympathetic function. That is in all of us. So it's part of all of our history. So it's not, if you judge that, you're judging yourself. But so this is the current dominant paradigm, the Abrahamic control, blood sacrifice religions. And it's still there. We're sacrificing ourselves for our families. We do all this. Now, if you want to start to upset this or trying to point it out, this is why we become very difficult. It upsets the paradigm. If you're going to speak directly to it, it's going to get very angry at you. And most of the people themselves are absolutely programmed by it. So it's not, we're self-controlling. Like, you know, like again, the sheep are watching themselves. We're the sheeple. We watch ourselves. If anyone's out of line, we train our kids. We give them the horrible Pavlovian training called school. The bell goes off. You know, your alarm clock goes off. All that. If you're going to speak to it, you can do it as an artist. Artists do it hiddenly. Shakespeare, Hans Christian Andersen, for that matter. All those stories, those sagas, those stories. Disney, some of it creeps in there. A lot of it's unconscious. It's inspired by our own higher selves, the souls, or the certain angels that are trying to inspire it. The writers aren't always conscious of. They are just channels, in a sense. They are listening to the muses, the music, and so they're channeling it. But if you speak to it directly, now you can hide it in the music, but if you speak to it directly, you become a problem because you're about setting the sheeple, the cattle, free, and so you create trouble. So when I speak to it directly around people, speak into their programming, I'm the bad guy. It's the kill the messenger. It's the whole phenomena of killing the messenger. And that's basically still the operating paradigm on the planet. So you have a choice. You have a choice as you start waking up to this knowledge. You can be incognito, hiding it. You know, you are not showing your enlightenment. You're still operating, but you always need to be on your toes because you can't trust the programmed people. You can trust them to be programmed, but you can't trust them to be conscious. So you're always kind of a stranger in a strange land. You're walking inside a prison camp. You are in the world, but trying not to be of it. The other so you can hide yourself and play along. And the other option is you speak directly to it and go, this is bullshit. Like I'm doing a little bit in this video, like the Abrahamic crap and the blood sacrifice and all that. Now, when you speak directly to it, you become a target. You become a target. Again, like Martin Luther King, RFK, JFK, John Lennon, and so forth. And you become eliminated often, just because you're a potential troublemaker. We have more power than these ancient Anunnaki controlled religions. Now these are the Illuminati, if you want to call them that. And again, they're not all bad either. There's a whole faction inside the Illuminati that's wanting to wake up. It's a sordid old history of Earth, of this control that we've been through. And this is the time when thousands of us are waking up from it. Thousands of us are waking up from it. This wake-up process is a deprogramming process. It is not easy. It's the dark night of the soul. It is the expunging, getting rid of these programs, these subconscious, these cellular energetic memories literally in your cells, getting rid of them. So the Anunnaki basically, this ET race, if you will, they destroyed Mars, right? And then they time traveled to here. Atlantis, they sunk that continent from the using of the energy. And then in Mesopotamia, the stargates are still in there. Stargates travel through space-time. And that's a true technology as well. So they basically created pieces of themselves. They realized they couldn't survive on Earth in their current genetic form. Abraham didn't want to be seen as what he really was. They had to blend in at a certain point, which is why they became the genetic manipulators. Now, some of the human race was created by the Anunnaki, not all of them. There's so many different influences. The Aborigines and Japanese are completely different beings from different parts of the galaxy, the Nordics and so forth, right? So there's a big mix here and a big obfuscation of what the real history of Earth is. And we're about now rediscovering this. We're rediscovering this slowly at this time. And so this particular faction, which is just one of the stories, it's not the whole story of the human race, but there was some manipulation going on, genetic manipulation, back at David's calendar, those things that Michael Tellinger, God bless him, awesome work in my opinion, is doing in Africa. Those giant Adam's calendars, these ancient things, the mining for gold, yes, all true. And that coincides with mitochondrial Eve, the DNA, the original human according to the academicians. The mitochondrial Eve that tracks from southern Africa coincides with this Anunnaki genetic manipulation time frame at 250,000 years ago. So that's kind of very interesting. So, but all these things are going to converge at one point. Big wake-up calls for the planet at this point. Can't go too fast because we're so used to being sheeple and cattle. When you open the door actually for the cattle to go out, they are terrified. They will stand there and shake. Their legs will shake as they stand in front of the cattle guard or the open gate that's never been opened before. They are terrified. Well, this is pretty much exactly what we're like as humans right now. But we're being given a choice. Do you still want slave masters? So these Anunnaki, they created some of their own genetic stuff so that they could inhabit human bodies or be human in a sense. And these are the elite of the world. This is why they were I've always been so concerned with who marries who, because that genetic aspect, that little genetic aspect that is not human in them, even though they appear completely human, needs to be carried on. So therefore the arranged marriages and royalty and so forth. And it's not just white Europeans. It's all over the planet. The leaders of China, the leaders of any civilizations, the Incas, all that stuff, there was these Anunnaki half geneticized, manipulated humans are the ones that ran the planet, and they still do at this point. They basically are the families that run this planet, Oriental and Occidental. So that's the deal. The current programming is still the Abrahamic programmings in the West. And the separation here is we're going through the wake-up, and you have two choices, and you can combine the two. I do a little bit of both. You can confront completely, and you can play incognito. You can be a source told me years ago, he said, Tobias, your choice. You can be an absolute rebel against the world and just shove it in their face, the untruth, and that has a certain path to it, including possible assassinations. Or you can be a reformer from the inside. And I, of course, said, how about I do a little bit of both? So, but that's the choice. If you speak directly to this dominant paradigm, it doesn't like it. And it's not an easy choice because the cattle tend to turn on you as well. The scared cattle tend to want to go back inside their programmed religions, their programmed monetary system, their religious control. See, that was started by the Anunnaki. That Abrahamic religions were started by the Anunnaki. So the Vatican, all that stuff, that's from those ancient programs. So if you're going through an awakening, you're going to have to disengage from these programs, which are deep in family and love and Christmas and all that shit. Pardon me. But, you know, it's such damn programming about all this and you know, slaughtering animals, slaughtering each other. Unbelievable. But that's how it is. All right, so during this holy day season, there's perhaps a choice for you. Do I want to stay programmed, stay inside the bloodthirsty, the bloodletting, the blood ritual of Isaac being sacrificed by his father, almost a sadistic God enjoying playing with your head, right? Or actually blood sacrificing of Jesus. Do you want to get completely free of that? Or do you want to keep going inside the blood sacrifice system, the culture, the cult of blood sacrifice, whether it's in wars and mass, World War I, World War II, or pharmaceutical companies harvesting people, killing them, or, you know, us killing ourselves. See, it's not blaming anybody else. It's really us. When we decide to wake up, when we decide we no longer want to be part of that cult, that culture, nature is there waiting for us. Nature waits for the sons and daughters of man to wake up. I think it says in even the Bible somewhere. So Jesus tried to come and shift it during this his birthday season, which is not really his birthday, of course. It's more like April or whatever it was. ask for real transformation in my life. It can be as simple as an invitation, as an intention. I want out of this programmed culture, which has to do with really rooted in some horrible places, some real mind control, genetic control, enslavement of the human species. I wish you a beautiful, start feeling some of that. So, love is the conqueror. Love will conquer all of it. In the midst of it, start speaking some of the truth. If you speak too much, it'll tilt everybody and they all turn on you. But make your own decision. What do you want? Do you want this planet to be free again? This is the inception of it. It's the beginning of the end of the beginning, right now as we're doing this. It might take another, I don't know, 700 years or something, 300 years, 200 years, 150. I have no idea. The timing, I don't know, of where we actually make a huge awakening, a paradigm shift on this planet. I'm doing it for me because I love it, the freedom I get from it, instead of being trapped in this old system. And I recommend and I encourage you to do it for yourself also. It's not an easy path. It will kick your ass. People will turn on you. You'll have to make choices of walking away from certain people, often family and partners, because they're not going that way. They're going to die in the old way. If you enable people, you're just enabling them to die in the old system. I don't want to do that. All right. Much love.